I just want to inform you of the helmet that we're wearing for safety reasons, of course. Residents are retaliating. They're throwing stones around because two huge trucks from the anti-land invasion unit have just moved into COVID-19 informal settlements. Now I'm going to let the visuals play out and ask my camera to show you what is currently taking place. So, of course, the Western Cape government, the city of Cape Town, has received word of what has been developing here in what residents call the COVID-19 informal settlement. And they have now called in two huge trucks from the anti-land invasion unit, and they are mopping down all the structures that are standing in this particular newly built informal settlement. I'm going to ask my colleague to pan and show you that residents are so ready to move in. They had their belongings already. Some of them brought their furniture, and so these homes are now being torn down by, of course, the city of Cape Town's anti-land invasion unit. It is accompanied by law enforcement officers. Scenes here are going to develop as more and more law enforcement officers get deployed into the area. Now, what you know and what we know about this particular informal settlement is that it is a newly built informal settlement, and residents who have been erecting structures here are residents from various communities around Cape Town. These are residents who had their homes flooded. These are residents who can no longer afford to pay rent. Remember, there's about 3 million South Africans who've lost their jobs. Many of them are also here saying because they can no longer afford to pay rent as backyard dwellers, they've decided to come and build here. And they've been coming in dribs and drabs from various communities here in Cape Town, close to the N2 highway on Forey Road. Residents have been building their homes throughout this week. What we know in terms of the land ownership here, according to some of the information that we gathered from the Department of Human Settlements here in the Western Cape, some of this land, it's a very vast piece of land, and so some of it belongs to the city of Cape Town, some of it belongs to Cape Nature, and some of it belongs to provincial public works. So it's a very vast piece of land, and if authorities are going to do this, it's going to take a lot of manpower. I'm going to continue walking with my colleague so that he can show you how huge this land is. But of course, these are the scenes right now where you have the anti-land invasion unit demolishing the structures. It's going to be a very, very long day. This is one of the biggest land occupation incidents that have been happening in the Western Cape now for almost 2 weeks. Residents adamant that they will continue building here for as long as they can. However, now the city, as well as the anti-land invasion unit and the Western Cape government, has received word of development. So anti-land invasion unit workers are going to go up as high as that hill to try and get to some of the structures that have already been built. Residents are scattered all around. Some of them are gathered in groups all the way there. I'm going to ask my colleague to zoom and show you. They are so scared right now. And I mean, those are fears that they did raise with us when we had interviews with them, that in as much as they are building here, they are fearful of this actually happening, where they have their homes torn down by the city of Cape Town. So the tensions are very, very high here, and residents are really just watching. And obviously, earlier on, they were retaliating and throwing stones and hurling stones at the direction of these workers. But they are heavily guarded by the city of Cape Town's law enforcement officers who are here to protect these guys, the anti-land invasion unit workers who are putting down the structures here in COVID-19 informal settlement.
Now, Athi, as you rightfully say, we've been seeing these scenes in the Western Cape playing out for several weeks now. The Human Settlements Minister, Lindiwe Sisulu, actually saying that land invasions, yes, are illegal, but also removing people during a pandemic, during this cold weather conditions, is also illegal. What jurisdiction do the Western Cape Anti-Land Invasion Unit have at this point?
Well, I'm not sure if I could hear what you were saying, but as I respond and try to give you some kind of information regarding the evictions that have been taking place, we know that during the national disaster, evictions are prohibited, actually, and there's several cases where the city of Cape Town has lost. There's a recent one which they lost at the Western Cape High Court, where the city was told to return the structures of residents in Hamburg, which the city tried to evict. And so we actually had an interview with the MEC for Human Settlements, Tertius Simmers, who told us that there might be a syndicate that is behind these sporadic land occupation incidents that have been happening. This is not the only one, Unathi. There are several land occupation incidents that are taking place in the Western Cape, but this is, of course, the biggest one. They've deployed so many resources. There's 2 huge trucks right now to try and remove people from this piece of land. And so what we know, according to the Western Cape MEC for Human Settlements, Tertius Simmers, that there might be a syndicate that is allegedly selling land to some of the residents around the communities here in Cape Town and is promising them land to come and obviously erect structures and build homes here. So it's going to be a long day for the anti-land invasion unit as they try to mop up this particular informal settlement called COVID-19. I'm just going to speak to some of the residents here and ask them how they're feeling about what is happening right now. Tata, niziva kanjani ngalento eyenzeka yapha kuni ngoku?
Hayi ngakubona ndokhanga ngezinto naze ndokhanga ngezinto. Ngiyazibona nazi emotweni.
So bathini kuwe tata, bazithatha njani ungokhanga ngazo?
Hayi andiyazi sinaba nawe uyababona bayasithatha.
Now I'm going to ask my colleague as I loosely translate what this gentleman was saying. He's saying he does not know why the authorities are deciding to take his material because he hasn't even used it to build yet. It's still in his vehicle. So he's quite angry about that, saying they shouldn't be taking his material if it's not on the land, and if he hasn't even actually started building with the material. So residents have actually gone out to make loans to try and buy some of this material. So all of this material is going to get taken away. The money that residents used, their last money, which they told me that they used to try and buy this material, is now being taken away by the anti-land invasion unit workers, who are, of course, accompanied by the law enforcement officers deployed here to monitor the situation at the COVID-19 informal settlement.
Well, Athi, I can certainly hope that you can hear my question now before we lose you again. The Western Cape government calling this a syndicate behind these land invasions. But you've been at the scene on the ground for several weeks now, talking to desperate South Africans who are trying to find land. Is this the case in your view? Are these syndicates?
That is definitely not the sense that I'm getting from the residents. These are people that are coming. These are scores of residents that are coming from all over. I'm talking about areas like Kraaifontein. I'm talking about areas like Mfuleni, Khayelitsha, just behind us. It doesn't seem to me, through my engagements with them, that they are buying plots of land around here. It seems like people are just coming in drips and drabs, hearing over word of mouth that there is currently a process where people are embarking on erecting structures on this piece of land. And so people have just been coming from all over. It doesn't actually seem like they are buying the land, because none of them can actually afford anything right now. Some of them who I spoke to yesterday say they don't know what the future holds for them, because they can barely afford to buy food for, even at night when they have to go to sleep. They can barely afford to buy bread. And so to say that they might be buying the land, that will obviously need to be investigated by the South African police, of course, following the allegations that have been made by the MEC for Human Settlements here, Tertius Simmers, alleging that the land might be sold to the residents. But like I said, these residents can barely afford anything. Many of them have been coming with spades here to try and buy and build on this piece of land. They're here with their children. They've been coming with spades and various material to try and build. I'm going to ask these mothers if they can talk to me about how they are feeling about this. Mama, just
Siziva kabuhlungu kakhulu thina sisi, because into ebangela uba sibe lapha sizothatha lo mhlaba kungenxa yoba sihlele emanzini. And uCity of Cape Town xa sisiya kuya ko-disaster into yoba mabasincede ngoba sihlele emanzini. Awukwazi uhlala emanzini indlithi igabhu ngamanzi uhleli nabantwana. Kungabikho nto iza kuthi thina singabantu kuthiwe hayi kuzokwenziwa into ethile, akho nto yenziwayo ka sihoyanga uCity of Cape Town. So the reason uba sizothatha lo mhlaba namhlanje siwuthatha kuba sixakekile sisengxakini. Asiwuthathi lo mhlaba ngoba sonwabile sijabulile sifuna uthatha umhlaba.
Mama, kuthiwa niyawuthenga lo mhlaba ngabe nyhani leyo?
Siyawuthenga sinamali othenga umhlaba thina. Sinayo imali othenga umhlaba. Asinayo imali othenga umhlaba. Qha sithatha umhlaba siwubonayo ungenabantu ngoba sisengxakini sihlele emanzini.
Thank you very much. Just to loosely translate what this lady is saying she's obviously one of the residents that were affected and adversely affected, more precisely, by the severe cold front which made landfall, which resulted in heavy downpours. Her home was flooded, and she says they've been attempting to get help and assistance from the city of Cape Town to try and assist them with flood kits. Some communities do get these flood kits delivered to them, but obviously this lady, being a resident from one of the communities and one of the many communities that don't receive these flood kits, saying that she had no choice but to come and try and build here, and of course saying that they do not have money, they cannot afford to even buy land, if that is the allegation that has been leveled against them. Unathi.
All right, Athi, thank you so much for that update. We'll definitely be tracking the story and we'll continue to monitor what is happening in the Western Cape. Some very tragic scenes coming out of that anti-land invasion unit removing desperate South Africans trying to find land.